Hello everybody, I'm Gabrielle Vinet, host of Cultivating Innovation with Tetra, adaptive tools for the farm and kitchen. This podcast showcases customized solutions for overcoming barriers for people with disabilities. Each episode puts the spotlight on a real-life issue and follows how Tetra responded. Tetra has been building creative solutions and overcoming barriers for over 35 years. This podcast is a collaboration between Ingenium, Canada's Museums of Science and Innovation, the Disability Foundation in Vancouver, and the Tetra Society of North America. After an accident resulting in him becoming tetraplegic, Sam created the foundation in the 80s and invented Tetra, one of the affiliated societies, in 1987. Thank you so much for coming.
Thank you for inviting me.
So I just want to start off by asking, how did you become the founder of the Disability Foundation?
Well, that was kind of a gradual process. I had created a couple of nonprofit societies. They were getting bigger and bigger, and we needed to deal with money issues, and we needed a foundation. We created what we call the Reach Disability Foundation. That just happened because we needed it. We only did things as we needed it. So it wasn't anything that we dreamed up in some grand scheme. It was just a response to a need to be able to store money and use it in the future.
Okay. So where did you get the funding for the Disability Foundation?
Well, originally, we all of us were on welfare, so we weren't we weren't able to do a lot, but we did. People were putting little bits and pieces in, and but what we did was we went out to individuals and to companies and would say, we're trying to buy an ultralight aircraft, and they were, like $10,000. So we would then go to companies and go to foundations and we found that there were people willing to put that kind of money into a project. So we had to learn to be very creative, but there was no government willing to. I think they thought they would get in trouble if the government was funding a sailboat. Like, wow, with all of the things we need, and is that where my tax money's going? Giving somebody a sailboat.
So Disability Foundation has been around for quite a while now. When did it all begin?
So 1980s, the late 1980s is when things started to come together. Quite honestly, a lot of it was my interests. I wanted to do the ultralight first, and then the sailing. But it was also, originally I wanted to go skiing again. I wanted to recover the things that I experienced as an able-bodied person when I, before I was injured. And I was thinking, okay, I want that motion. I want the wind in the hair, the mobility, the interaction with nature. Where can I get that? Well, what about sailing? Vancouver's on the ocean. Maybe we could do that. So then I had to go around and look at all the different sailing places. And the one that was the flattest, all of the sailing yacht clubs are built on hills, because you want deep water. The only place you could avoid that is at the Jericho Sailing Center, which is on very, very flat area, and it's not for sailing boats that have deep hulls. It's for these little Hobie cats and sort of these types of boats that don't go very deep. So that's where we ended up.
So all in all, the organization has been alive for over 30 years, 35 to be exact. So how do you feel now that you've seen its success?
Oh, it's amazing. First of all, it's so unlikely that something that we do exists.
Mm-hmm.
You won't find anything, as far as I can tell, you won't find anything in any other place in the world where we have these collection of unfundable things, the music program, the hiking program, the kayaking, the sailing, the gliders,
Mm-hmm.
all of the, and Tetra, and um, then the employment stuff that, well, the volunteering stuff that we do. So it's, any one of these would not exist on their own. It's only when you put them all together and have them support each other that you
Mm-hmm.
can reduce the cost of administration enough to make it viable. But I said, I'm really doing it for me 10, 20 years ago. Sam Sullivan, quadriplegic. I remember being plopped into my social housing, and I had boxes of stuff that had, my personal things. And I couldn't open the curtains. So I was in this dark place all by myself, completely lost. I didn't
Mm-hmm.
know what I could do. And I was thinking, I'm doing it for that guy who is, they're coming into the world often, and they are completely lost. They don't know what opportunities there are. And, for me, it was really beautiful to be motivated. You get out and you're sailing,
Mm-hmm.
and or you're kayaking, and you're going through the wilderness, and you're thinking, wow, so there is quality of life after disability.
Mm-hmm. For sure. So a lot of your obviously the funding is not all there. So you're relying on a lot of people volunteering their time to help out with the foundation. So how sort of do you find those volunteers?
Yeah, the thing couldn't work without the volunteers. So, and that's the reality, is it's not a lot of people that can write checks.
Mm-hmm.
There are still a lot of people that want to put time and energy in. And yeah, you could never have any of these programs work if we didn't have volunteers. I mean, you look at Tetra. I mean, Tetra is completely based on highly skilled volunteers.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so how did that affiliated society sort of come around?
So way I started Tetra is I got together with three other guys that were quadriplegics, and we wanted to have a better life. I couldn't, there's so many things that were holding me back from just having a decent life. And so we needed a name, and I said, well, what about the quad group? And they said, oh no, we hate that. We hate the word quadriplegic. We don't want to affiliate with that. And I remembered that in Europe they call them tetraplegics. So I said, well, what about the Tetra group? There's four of us. It doesn't
Mm-hmm.
necessarily have to be about tetraplegic, because they didn't even know the word. They never heard of it. And so I said, there's four of us. Why don't we call the Tetra group? And we could sort of, knowing that it was sort of also tetraplegics.
Mm-hmm.
So we just needed a name. But what happened was we put our money together. We said, okay, let's put some money together and get an engineer. We'll hire an engineer. So I had to go and find what was the hourly salary, or hourly contracting wage of a professional engineer. And I had to report back that it was more than the whole month of our welfare check was
Mm-hmm.
1 hour. I said, oh my God, how could we ever? We get 1 hour, and we'd have to spend our whole month of our income. So then we realized, okay, we need another approach. So I just wrote a letter to the editor of the engineering magazine. I said, this is us. We're a bunch of quadriplegics. We need help. Is there anybody out there who might have some volunteer time, or maybe if a company has somebody but they can't use them for a few hours, could they allocate them to this? And so one gentleman answered, came, can I meet with you? I was like, okay, yeah. And he came and he said, look, you know, I just took early retirement. My wife's going to kill me if I don't get out of the house. You know, can you give me something to do? I showed him how I couldn't get my freezer open. He went into my bedroom, pulled out a hanger and twisted it around and made it a hook around, and he put it on my shelf of my fridge. And I opened my freezer door and I put that hook and it stayed open. But literally, he had revolutionized my diet in seconds. I could now open my own freezer and get food out of it. And so then I realized, wow, we got something great. And so then I sent him over to the other guys and he fixed all their problems. And wow, we got to find more of these guys. How can we find these people, you know, because they're just changing our lives and it's all for free, you know?
That's amazing. Well, thank you so much for this. I have one more question before we go. So we're hoping, obviously, with this podcast to reach people all across Canada. We're hoping to get new volunteers. We're hoping to get people with disabilities who have who need help, who need assistance. We're hoping to educate people along the way. That would be great. So is there something you would like to say to the people listening to the podcast?
Well, I guess, you know, it's important to communicate how the world has done a good job of making basic access possible, you know, but it's the quality of life that's not there. There's no real support, you know, government won't ever do that, you know, and so that's a matter for individuals, you know, that's part of what you call community. And community means people getting involved, you know, and I know myself, I get so much personal pleasure out of seeing people thriving in their lives, people overcoming their own self-doubts. And so it is so rewarding to be part of that. And so I would encourage people, you know, to reach out, and it'd probably do you more good than them, actually, you know, just as much good for sure as people to be able to be part of improving people's lives, you know? So I just encourage people to break out, you know, because it's actually so healthy to think about other people. So that's my message.
That's amazing. Thank you, Sam, so much for this. This was very insightful.
It's so beautiful to see. Yeah. Thank you for communicating that. It's so important to have you to be able to tell that story.
Thank you. Thanks for listening to Cultivating Innovation with Tetra, adaptive tools for the farm and kitchen, with me, Gabrielle Vinette. If you're interested in learning more about us, check out tetranation.org. To find out more about Ingenium, Canada's Museums of Science and Innovation, you can visit their Facebook page at Ingenium, Twitter at IngeniumCA, and Instagram at Ingenium Canada. That's all for this episode. See you next time.